From there, the beef ended up in the supply chains of McDonald's, Burger King, and major grocery stores.
I feel like I had become a slave, a product of the convict system, because everything that I was doing was profiting the prison.
The 13th Amendment of the U.S. Constitution abolished slavery and involuntary servitude, except as punishment for a crime. We spoke to prisoners who were working on the same plantation soil where slaves toiled more than 150 years ago. Many were making pennies an hour. Some were getting nothing at all. Others were being contracted out to private companies or taking part in work release programs. Prisoners can sometimes be punished for refusing to work, even thrown into solitary confinement.
Because anytime you bump it,
and if they are hurt on the job, they often have little recourse.
They aren't eligible for workman's compensation, nor are they protected by other worker safety laws because they're not considered quote unquote employees.
We're going to have to figure out different ways to make our system a better system instead of just exploiting labor and then calling it crime prevention.
The agriculture sector is just a fraction of the overall prison labor industry, which includes everything from public works to stamping license plates.
They're learning a skill set. They're learning to be responsible for something. They're learning to pay back their debt to society.
I learned that if I wanted to be better, I have to make my own way, basically. That the opportunities are here. They're not going to give them to me.
But prisons and corporations benefit from inmate labor. The goods wind up in the supply chains of giants like Walmart, Target, Whole Foods, and Costco, just to name a few. The AP also found American prison labor linked to the supply chains of multinational companies such as Cargill that export goods all over the world. This is happening even though Washington has banned imports and seized goods that were produced by prison or forced labor abroad.
DHS is deeply concerned by credible and growing reports of China's state-sponsored use of forced labor and other human rights violations.
All right, guys. So I want to just stop right there, right? And I'll provide the link for you guys so that you can actually view the video in its entirety. It's about 3 minutes long. But I wanted to stop right there because they were just going to start talking about how the U.S. has pretty much forged a fight in other countries to end forced labor while still allowing it to happen in our country. And I want us to think about like what that actually means, right? They brought up that, you know, incarcerated workers, because they're not viewed or they don't have employee status, they lack worker protections. And I think that's important to highlight because I received quite a bit of communication from incarcerated workers who've been injured. Some of them have been written cases due to their injury for damaging state property, specifically in Texas, you know, with no recourse, right? No, you know, with sometimes subpar medical treatment and sometimes no medical treatment at all. And so this is why we can't lean into the conversation about wage and payment. And we need to focus on really what it's like, what it means to violate the human rights and dignity of an individual, right? Many incarcerated individuals want to work. And Curtis Davis, who you guys saw in that video, who also is leading the fight to end slavery in Louisiana, he mentions that quite a bit, you know, because he is formerly incarcerated. He actually was wrongfully convicted. And he says that, you know, most individuals on the inside, they want to work. And so this is not about providing an opportunity for people to be lazy. It's not about providing an opportunity for people to get over on the state. You know, what we're hoping for is for incarcerated workers to be recognized as employees and moreover as individuals. So I'm going to provide some links in the chat. I want to highlight that my colleague David Johnson and I have been working to abolish slavery together in the state of Texas for the past two sessions. Our organization, Coalition to Abolish Slavery Texas, have put forth bills for the past two sessions, which, it's been very difficult to get the bills through because, to be honest, it's difficult to have the conversation with individuals when the main topic is what it looks like to be someone who's locked up. Which is totally negating what's really happening here, right? And the vestige and the institution of slavery that we continue to allow to happen every day. So while I'm posting the links, I want to pass it over. I think that's a great segue to my sister and colleague, Leticia Hill, who is the executive director and founder of Gateway Alliance Project. She is also a steering committee member for the Statewide Leadership Council. She serves with Time Done, which is another beautiful organization. And I'll yield to her to talk about some of her other many accolades and go on into the next part of this session.
Thank you so very much for your very humbling introduction of me. I am so thrilled to be in this space with you lovely ladies today. Savannah, I have secretly been trying to make Google eyes at you from the sidelines for years. I am so thrilled to be here at this stage and be able to share this very important message with everyone, right? My name, as Savannah mentioned, is Leticia Hill. I am a life and business coach here in the Dallas area. I am formerly incarcerated, directly impacted. I am a criminal justice activist. I am an organizer in my community, and I am fighting really hard to make a better way for reentry into the community for women, reunification of these families, and diversion alternatives for the at-risk youth in my community. That said, I got my teeth in this environment, chasing people like Savannah around the Capitol, watching as they advocated so diligently for change. And one of the things that became very apparent very early on is if we don't have the support of our neighbors saying that we all want this change, it's an uphill climb. So I reshifted my focus. I was reminded of the things that I grew to take for granted. I'm a 60s baby. I grew up at a time way different from what I am living in now. And I was fortunate to be trained in the importance of my civic responsibility without even knowing it. It was just like brushing my teeth. It was something that we just did. I have now learned that that didn't happen in all of the households across the country, especially in those that look like me. So here I am to share the little bits of information that I know to help raise awareness, because I am a firm believer that when we know better, we will do better. And if you all have not looked to the left or the right, the time is now to have your voices heard. There are so many pivotal changes going on right in front of our eyes that are going to directly impact us. And if we do not lift our voices and have it to be heard, then shame on us. So I said all that to say, I want to dispel some of the confusion, especially as it pertains to those of us with previous criminal convictions here in the state of Texas. They don't want us involved. They don't want us organized. They don't want us unified, because then they have to start doing some of the things that we are asking to be done, because the people who are in office charged with making these decisions that impact us, we get to pick who they are. And they come into our communities each and every session, and they share with us what they promise that they're going to do for us. And we either believe them and we vote for them, or we don't believe them and we find someone who lines up with our core values and we support them instead. But either way, we pick a side. If we do not pick a side, then what we are allowing to happen is a very small percentage of people that do not look like us, do not represent us, are now making those very broad decisions that impact us. So I would urge all of you in all of your circles, wherever they are, and y'all know I'm a friend of the friendless. I support all walks of life, even the ghetto. So when we are out in these streets, y'all, let's start picking each other up. Let's start supporting each other and sharing these golden nuggets, because this is what they don't want us to do. They don't want us unified. They don't want us speaking the same language and talking the same talk and demanding the same rights, because then guess what? They have to do something about it. And they know that if they don't, we have the power to make change by changing our votes. So that said, I had some slides. I'm all over the place. I just wanted to make sure that all people who are off paper, you're finished with your criminal conviction portion of your time, you are in the state of Texas eligible to vote. And moreover, you are eligible to register as a volunteer deputy registrar and register your neighbors to vote if that's what you should choose to do. I would invite you to reach out to people in your community who are doing some of the work in the areas that are of concern to you. If you are here in the Dallas area or in Garland, I would love to have you over at Gateway. I got a lot of projects for us to get done. But first, back to the subject matter at hand. Savannah talked to us about the 13th Amendment and how being Black was just criminalized at a point in time in our history. And that was the precipice for the prison industrial complex and this giant beast that we are throwing rocks at today. I speak firsthand as a person who was forced to take a job that I was not qualified for, with very little training provided to operate very heavy artillery. And this is my granddaughter. Sorry for that. But I was on my job was a landscaper. I drove a John Deere lawnmower, and me and 6 other badass girls got out and did jobs that we subjected ourselves to injury and injured ourselves on regular occasion as we were completing these things that we didn't even have a voice in saying whether we wanted to or not. That's just not right. So I'm going to skip over to slide number 4. Savannah, can you go to slide 4 for me? Slide 4 is going to talk about why it's important to get engaged. And I love this slide. It is a hodgepodge created. My sister is an artist, and I get to steal all of her information. So if you look very closely, you will see images of not only historically great leaders in this country, but you will see historically great leaders in my family. So I love that I get to use this slide. But it's just to say, look, being civically responsible just means that you're being involved and engaged in things that are happening within your community. And one of the ways to do that is by voting. Can we go to the next slide? I talked about how I learned to become civically engaged. This is my big mama and my big daddy. My big daddy was a proud Black man in the 60s in a small beach community in California, trying to raise us to be the best citizens that we could be. And unbeknownst to us, he was showing us better than he could tell us, because he was hard to understand. And if you knew him, you know what I mean. That said, one of his proudest moments were when our living room, our family living room, would be transformed into the community polling place. And all of our neighbors would come in and they would cast their ballot right there in our living room. And I couldn't figure out why he would get so proud, because it just seemed like a lot of work for people who didn't like us anyways. And it wasn't until I became a full adult and realized how the entire history of what was taking place in front of my very eyes was playing out before me, that I understood that sense of pride that he wore as the Black man in the neighborhood who was having the polling location in his living room. So again, I encourage you, get involved. His biggest tagline was, "I knew the mayor." My big daddy did know the mayor. Of course he did. Why? Because the mayor is the man who makes things happen in your community. He was always hanging out at the local city council meetings and going into places and just listening and asking questions, because he knew that just as being a member of that society, that he had a right to be there and he had a right to ask questions. And at the end of the day, he was going to cast his vote based on the information he had gathered. So inform yourselves, inform your friends. The next slide, please, talks about how we didn't vote because we didn't think it made a difference. And this slide, it talks about how over 47% of eligible voters cast their vote. That's not to mention the 8 million people who just didn't even try, right? If we could just move that needle just a little bit, think of the difference that we could make. And then lastly, for those of you who say, well, Letitia, I'm still on paper, so I can't vote, so you're not talking to me. Or I'm just a kid in high school and no one listens to what I have to say anyways. I say to you, never. There is always a way to get involved. Be informed. Reach out to people in your community, follow podcasts, listen, show up to community events, know what's happening in your neighborhood, and then take a stand. And then once you do, social media is one of the greatest tools that we have available to us. Everyone can use it, and you can use your social media platform to push the thing that is important to you. So yes, you too can get involved. And as always, there are plenty of grassroots organizations out there looking for volunteers and people to help raise awareness. So again, there's room for you at the table, and we invite you and welcome you. We need you. Again, you can find me at on Facebook at Gateway Alliance Project, or at my website at www.gatewayallianceproject.org. I am so excited to have you here and looking forward to doing great things with you going forward. That said, I am now at the point in this wonderful presentation where I get to introduce a woman who has been so instrumental in growing me in this Dallas election arena and all things voter education. So without further ado, I want to introduce Miss Elaine Campbell, my friend, and I'm going to let her put all her other titles on, because she wears so many hats within the community.
Thank you so much, Letitia and Savannah, and thank you so much for helping organize this. I do want to say that I can't say enough about, I'm going to talk specifically about voting and how to get registered and what it means, and how to find out and do the research for your candidates. However, I do want to make sure that I want to reiterate what Letitia was saying, that even if you're not on paper yet, please reach out to Gateway, please reach out to State Leadership Council. I have done many voter registration events, and I always make sure that I invite people who are formerly incarcerated. Many are not off paper yet. Many who have been engaged with legislation and even getting laws passed, because you can still do that. And they can show you how to do that. And we will support you. I will support you, because everyone's voice in the community matters. But I'm a community organizer, just to tell you who I am. I am a community organizer, and I am an issue-based voter, and I'm a voter deputy registrar. And my passion is helping people understand what is happening with LEDGE, how to do research, how to get vote. And I focus on people, on helping people not go to prison, the school to prison pipeline, helping people who are formerly incarcerated get as much support as possible so they really can have their time done when it's done, get jobs, get paid, have your family, and helping family members who have incarcerated people, who have family members who are incarcerated. But let me go ahead and get started. Are one of you able to share my slides? Because I'm only on one screen today, and so I thought I could do it myself, but I think it might be difficult. If you can't, then I can do it.
I have one slide. Did you have more than one? I just had one.
The link that I shared is the whole deck.
Oh, okay. I think I got it. Hold on, let me see.
Thanks, Savannah. Elaine, you see me over here looking like a deer in the headlights because I was sharing off camera that I am not going to try any editing magic today.
There we go. That's it. So yeah, if you could do click on slideshow.
Okay.
On the upper right hand side. Thank you. So as Letitia was mentioning, underrepresented voters do not think that elected leaders care about their issues or care about our issues, which is one of the reasons that we have data-wise that we have found that people don't vote. And there's a feeling that elected leaders don't effectively address our issues. And so what ends up happening is underrepresented voters, especially people of color, end up not voting at very, very high rates. And that does hurt us. Because voting is our power, and voting is powerful. So if we go to the next slide, please.
Let's see. Oh, there we go.
So what I'm going to talk to you about us today is how we get registered, how we get registered to vote, how we are able to educate ourselves and educate our friends and educate our family and educate our community on what's on the ballot and when to vote and where to vote and all of those things. And then hopefully encourage everyone to vote, because we have a primary election coming up right now, and early voting starts this month. So that is going to be the goal today. So if we go to the next slide. So we cannot talk about voting without reviewing the Voting Rights Act of 1965. So these are just some highlights. There are a lot of things in the Voting Rights Act of 1965. And I would like to, if we can, share the link of, if not, then I think we have it. Share the link of NAACP explaining the Voting Rights Act of 1965, because there is a lot, and not only inside of it, but a lot of ways since 1965 ongoing that it is trying to be dismantled. It is trying to be disrupted. And in some ways, unfortunately, it has been gutted. And just how critical that is. So the Voting Rights Act of 1965 actually made it illegal for discriminating voting practices that had been widespread and specifically targeting Black Americans, African Americans, to make sure that we were not able to vote. And so it prohibits states from imposing any type of voting qualifications, prerequisites to voting, any type of denying people the ability to vote, and, targeting people because of race. And so there are a lot of things in it, but that's just high level. That is what it is addressing, and that is why it is so important. It's intended to outlaw practices that were in place to make sure that otherwise qualified voters had to do things like pass made-up literacy tests, or the polling test, all of these different things targeting marginalized communities to make sure that they were disenfranchised. And the reason that I want to bring this up is because the reason this is done is because people in power know that voting is powerful. So they want to make sure that our power is removed. So when people say that voting doesn't matter, well, the people in power know that it does. And that's why they're continuously, still today, working so hard to make it as hard as possible to vote, because it is powerful. And unfortunately, the United States of America is one of the hardest places to vote in this world. And Texas is one of the hardest states to vote in this world. So the fight is continuous. And I will continue to fight until I'm dead. And I am looking forward to all of us fighting together. So if we go to the next slide. So these are some of the reasons, though, why people do say that maybe they're not able to vote, because of the challenges, and it is confusing. So please don't think that something is wrong with you if it is made confusing on purpose. Okay, so people may not vote because of their lack of voting knowledge. How do I vote? How do I get registered? How do I learn about the candidates? I've moved. How do I change my registration? Where do I go to vote? How can I make a plan? How can I research my ballot? So these are some ways that we can do those things. These are some links that we will also share. The first one is the Texas Secretary of State. It is an information guide that shows you are able to put your address, and it will tell you exactly where you can go to vote, where your polling stations are. And there will be many, because in the state of Texas currently, and by the way, there are still people trying to work on changing this law, but this is the current law still. In the state of Texas, you can vote at any polling station in your county. So I am in Dallas County. There are many cities in Dallas County. I do not have to be in my precinct or in my neighborhood to vote. I could be visiting my mother in Richardson, because that's also in Dallas County, and I can vote there. So this is one way to try to make it as easy as possible for people to vote, because you may not work, for example, close to where you live, but you may still work in Dallas County. So you can find out exactly where your polling station is close to where you work if you want to do it like right before, right after work, and you can still vote. And the best way to find out the information about your candidates, to do research, is by using Vote 411. Vote 411 is a website that the information comes from the League of Women Voters, and it's nonpartisan. So it's information about every single candidate. You're able to put your address on the site, and it will show you who your senator, what Senate district you're in, what congressional district you're in, what precinct you're in, who is on your ballot. Are you voting for mayor this time? Are you voting for city council? Do you have a school board person coming up? Commissioner Court, Dallas County Tax Assessor Collector? Which ones are being contested? The reason that the League of Women Voters puts a lot of time and energy into this website is because, once again, all of these things not only can be confusing, so please don't think there's something wrong with you if it's confusing. They can be confusing and are made confusing on purpose, and they change due to gerrymandering. they change. I was in one House district 2 years ago. I am in a different one now. I had my commissioner was, I had a commissioner district that I was in a year and a half ago. I'm in a different one now. So I have been an election judge, and there are often times when people come to vote and they are surprised at who is on their ballot because they didn't know that that was their state senator now. They used to have a different one. Now they're in another district. So this is a way that you can even develop your entire ballot and do all of the research before you go to vote. And I am happy to help you. I know Letitia is as well is happy to help you, because it is not easy sometimes to do the research. The League of Women Voters does make it as easy as possible, but we will even work on finding out how we can have a one-to-one meeting with you and your candidate, if that is what you like. Because believe it or not, candidates like to talk to constituents. So
They
that
really
cannot,
do.
yes.
They
So
really
we
do.
will even, yes. So we will even help you do that. If you reach out to us, if you want to find out and have a real discussion with them. If they refuse to, well, that tells you something right there, right? But I can get, yes. So if we go to the next slide, we're going to talk now about how do we get registered to vote. So the requirements to register are: you have to be a United States citizen, you have to be 17 years and 10 months. These are the Texas requirements, because the requirements are different by state. Some of them are, not all of them. Some of them are federal, but some of them are state. In order to vote for an election in Texas, you have to register 30 days before. And that is why in Texas, you must be 17 years and 10 months old to register. You must not be declared mentally incapacitated by a judge. And in Texas, this varies by state. And in Texas, as Letitia mentioned, if you are convicted of a felony, you must be off paper. What does that mean? You cannot be on parole. You cannot owe money. You have to be completely off paper. And then you can register to vote. You can become a VDR. You can do all of those things. Even if you are in jail on election day, you still have a right to vote. Let us know if you have questions about that, because you still, if you meet all of the other requirements. So if you're in jail, haven't been convicted yet, are not, on paper it's a felony, you still have a constitutional right to vote. If you are in the hospital, if you're in any other facility, assisted living facility, we have ways that we can make sure that you can vote, and we will help you do that. So once you get registered, and if you're trying to find out where to go to get registered, we will help you with that all as well. If you are in Dallas County, Letitia and I are both voter deputy registers, and we will even we will meet you we will get you registered. So
can I put in there, Elaine?
Yeah.
I think this is a great place to point out that not only are we willing, that we are hitting the streets of Dallas hard this weekend with a group of organizers, and we're going to show up at some peculiar places, and we're going to get people registered. So follow either one of us on our Facebook pages, look at some of the local Dallas organizations to see where we're going to be, because we are going to do a hard court press before Monday, the last day to register, as Elaine mentioned. I thought that was a good plug. Sorry.
No, thank you. Thank you very much. So if we go to the next slide, and I just wanted to, this is what you will get in the mail. Well, this year they're yellow. This is the one from last year, they were blue. You do not have to re-register every year. However, it is always good to check on your registration before the deadline, because our county and state has done some funky things to people. So please, please, please check and make sure that you are still eligible and everything looks good and the address is correct. Because if you don't do that 30 days before, like for example, this election has to be done by February 5th to be able to vote March 5th. So if you don't do it, you cannot vote on that day. So please, please, please check on your voter registration. This is what you will get after you register, a couple of weeks after you register to vote. If you go to the next slide. So as I was mentioning, and as Letitia was mentioning, when is the next election? And the next election is our primary. Primary elections are so important. You will be voting for who is going to be on the ballot for president. For some people, it's going to be also the school board, Dallas County tax assessor collector, House representative, state senator, congressperson. There's some sheriff. There's some very, very important positions that are on this ballot. And if you're not sure who is on your ballot or how to find out what they feel or what they know or who they are, please, please, please reach out to Letitia and I, and we will guide you through that. Early voting is February 20th to March 1st, so it's coming up soon, 19 more days. And then election day is Tuesday, March 5th. And you have to be registered by Monday, by the end of the day, Monday. And as Letitia mentioned, in Dallas, we're going to be doing some block walking to make sure people understand what's going on this election, register people to vote, and if they're not registered, and help them figure out what's on their ballot, and just do a lot of guiding so that we can get people to register before Monday.
One of the other groups that I'd like to add to your what's on your ballot this election is also the judges for the 5th.
Yes, very critical.
It's critical.
Judges are so important, and a lot of people don't understand their importance. And judges, by the way, are some of the easiest people to get in touch with and talk to, and make sure you have one-on-one conversations with, and set up meetings, and those types of things. They're some of the ones that's what I've found. They're some of the easiest ones to do that with, and explain exactly what they do. You can even, because it's a court and courts are accessible to the public, unless it has to do with children or, other situations, you can sit in their courtroom and see how they treat people. I mean, I'm glad you brought that up, Letitia, because often people don't understand the importance of judges, but judges have a lot of leeway and they're so important.
Anyone who has been incarcerated understands the importance of the 5th District Court of Appeals.
Yes.
So even though it's not a local judge, it spans well past our county. It actually spans outside of our state. So it's very important.
Yes. Go to the next slide, please. So this is how, and I know it's 12:47, and just for the sake of time, I may go past this. These are the step-by-step ways of how to register. You have to use a blue or black pink. So you can actually skip these. And this is just, I wanted to review, because it's very important that when you register, that everything is clear. I have had people get their voter registration sent back to them and denied, because these are human beings reading this. You have to understand that. There are human people reading this. And if they cannot clearly read it, they will send it back and you will not be registered. So if you're sending something in on February 5th and they can't read it, you will not be able to vote, because it'll be too late, because they will send it back to you. So so I just wanted to reiterate that. Please, if you're filling it out yourself, please, please, please make sure that it is so clear. If you go to you can skip the next couple. And that is, yes, and that is it. So thank you guys for your time. Your vote does count. And again, if you're not off paper yet, your voice still counts. So, but thank you, and thank you very much.
Thank you so much, Elaine and Leticia, for the wealth of information that you guys have provided today, not only about how to get registered and why it's important to register to vote in your county, but in your state, and really just a period, right? And I think it's important as someone who has ran several campaigns for people to understand that, no campaign can be successful without the voters. And for everyone who says that your vote does not count, if it didn't count, there wouldn't be such a huge war waged against voter rights. So keep
Yeah.
that in mind when you're thinking about registering. Keep that in mind when you're sitting at the house thinking about um, overcoming barriers to get to the polls. Registering to vote is just the first step. You got to get to the polls and vote. So, again, thank you so much, ladies. I don't see any questions or comments right now, but obviously the video will be on our pages. If you guys have any comments, any questions, or any feedback, I've posted, let me make sure I've posted everyone's information here. So that you can keep track of all the work that Elaine is doing, all the work that Elaine is doing. And, at the end of the day, get involved. Civic engagement is about getting involved. We're not here to tell you what to get involved in, but do something. So on National Freedom Day and commemorating National Freedom Day, it is just that, the freedom to do and be whatever it is that you want to be. We should always celebrate that and remember the blood, sweat, and tears that our ancestors shed for us to be able to have the freedom and liberty to do so today. And to even do things like this, right? And have these types of conversations and discussions. So again, thank you all so much. Let me go ahead and drop all the links and follow us, get involved, and thank you for tuning in. You guys have any final comments? Or?
I want to say, I am so delighted at how this turned out. And we only know the scurry that went in putting it together. Savannah, you are first rate, top notch. You make it look so easy. No one knows what's really going on except for us. And thank you for your production qualities. Thank you for just all that you do within the community and representing the rest of us Black girls well out here in these streets, because Lord knows it's hard.
Yeah. Elaine, any final thoughts or comments?
Yes, I also am so honored to be in this group. And absolutely, it does. Letitia and I have become good friends, and I do know that both of us often struggle with wanting something to be perfect before we do it. And so I am so glad that we just did this because it was wonderful. It was wonderful.
Well, I hope it is the beginning of many more topics, conversations, discussions, and just, sisterhood. It's important to me, not just in my professional, but in my personal life, but my professional realm, to just connect with sisters and like-minded people so that we can affect change. So again, thank you, ladies. Thank you so much. And thank you for everybody who had the opportunity to tune in today. You guys have a great day.
Thank you.
Bye, y'all.